Violence has existed in movies for decades. Whether it's an act of gruesome revenge, like in I Saw the Devil and Kill Bill, or if it's an entertaining action adventure like most blockbusters. For me, the kind of violence that I personally find the most intense is the one that hits close to home. Domestic violence has the smallest scale when it comes to the limit of collateral damage, at least when compared to traditional action movies. But due to its personal nature, at times it's even more disturbing than many world-ending scenarios. In this video, I'm going to talk about two movies that tackle the theme of domestic violence, and from the point of view of both genders. Jack Torrance from The Shining, representing the male aggressor, and then Amy Dunne from Gone Girl, representing the female manipulator. Both characters abuse their power over their spouses in different ways, and despite each of the movies taking some cinematic license to exaggerate and dramatize the situation, it doesn't stop the fact that these kind of events can and do happen in real life. To frightening degrees, may I add?
I said, I'm not gonna hurt you. I'm just gonna bash your brains. I'm gonna bash them right the fuck in.
Let's start with The Shining. Since it's mostly the men who are recognized as the ones capable of being an abuser, this movie seems like the perfect place to start. Based on Stephen King's novel of the same name, The Shining follows Jack Torrance as he becomes a caretaker to the Overlook Hotel during winter. He moves into the hotel with his wife, Wendy, and their son, Danny. While in the almost empty hotel, Jack starts to go insane. It's all a blend of cabin fever, the hotel being haunted, and Jack being an abuser from the beginning, all of which create this cocktail of truly terrifying possibilities. From early on, we see Jack's frightening need for control and his aggressive demeanor. The earliest telling of this situation is when Wendy is talking to Danny's doctor about the time Jack dislocated Danny's arm.
Well, Danny had scattered some of his school papers all over the room, and my husband grabbed his arm, to pull him away from him. Used too much strength, and he injured Danny's arm.
While Wendy tries to see the optimistic side of it, that being Jack finally quits drinking, the doctor is clearly not as convinced. The fact that he berates Wendy even before the hotel offers him a drink shows that the alcohol wasn't the reason for his abuse either. Alcohol just enhances a person's emotions. What they do with those emotions is up to them. This is why people who cheat while intoxicated or those who are caught for DUI are not excused by the general public, and deservingly so.
Words of wisdom, Lloyd. Words of wisdom.
Jack is also established as the breadwinner of the family, which means everyone else depends on him financially. This, and Wendy forgiving him after previously abusing Danny, inflates his ego. That ego only grows larger as they stay in the hotel, and when his ego is bruised, he feels disrespected and lashes out, even though he himself has disrespected Wendy over a lot less, like when he curses her out over a small interruption during his writing.
Whenever you come in here and interrupt me, you're breaking my concentration. You're distracting me, and it will then take me time to get back to where I was. Whenever I'm in here, you hear me typing. Whether you don't hear me typing, what the fuck you hear me doing in here, when I'm in here, that means that I am working. That means don't come in. Get the fuck out of here.
All that over an innocent mistake. But this is just the beginning. As the story continues, he starts to get more and more annoyed by Wendy over even the most concerning situations. Like when Wendy tells him how there might be someone else other than them in the hotel, someone who harmed the child.
There's someone else in the hotel with us. There's a crazy woman in one of the rooms. She tried to strangle Danny.
Are you out of your fucking mind?
No.
Or when she suggests taking Danny to a doctor.
You think maybe he should be taken to a doctor?
In return, Jack only further talks about what he prioritizes even in such serious situations.
Have you ever had a single moment's thought about my responsibilities? Have you ever thought for a single solitary moment about my responsibilities to my employers?
Scenes like this display his narcissistic nature while also showcasing his victim complex. So when Wendy finally gets the upper hand on him and locks him in the freezer so that she and Danny can escape, he becomes even more violent and tries to kill her with an axe. A fucking axe! The guy went from ignoring his wife's contributions in taking care of the hotel to trying to take care of her cartel style by hacking her to pieces. Something to note here is that Jack's family is a lot more adherent to traditional gender roles. These roles put him on top when it comes to making decisions, which develops his superiority complex over Wendy. Now, don't get me wrong, a traditional gender role family is not bad. It may not be flawless, but there is nothing wrong with that system in itself either. As usual, it's always up to the few who misuse the power they're given, that then give the rest of the system a bad name.
Just a little problem with the old sperm bank upstairs. Nothing I can't handle, though, Lloyd. Man's burden, Lloyd, my man. Man's burden.
According to the United States Department of Justice, men commit violent crimes more than 3 times as often as women. While it explains how, most of the time, domestic violence cases show men as the abusers, how likely is it that a woman can be an equally dangerous abuser too? And how do the female abusers use such a perception of men to their advantage? This is where we're going to talk about our next movie, Gone Girl.
I am so much happier now that I'm dead. Technically missing. Soon to be presumed dead.
While The Shining represents a more traditional act of domestic violence through Jack's aggression, Gone Girl subverts the situation by putting a cold, calculated woman in the role of the aggressor, showing us that cruelty in relationships can wear many faces. Given how rare it is to see a woman as the abuser to begin with, it toys with those expectations within the movie.
My wife says he's a killer.
Well, if Tiffany says.
Based on Gillian Flynn's novel of the same name, Gone Girl follows Nick Dunne as he finds his wife missing during their 5th wedding anniversary. He contacts the cops but then ends up becoming the prime suspect himself due to mounting evidence against him, along with his media image taking a dive due to the reveal of his mistress and his unnaturally calm attitude throughout the whole search. While he is trying to navigate this complex situation, it is revealed halfway through the movie that Amy is alive and that she framed Nick for her disappearance as revenge for his infidelity and their failing marriage. Amy meticulously planned her disappearance, planting false evidence and leaving a detailed diary to paint herself as the perfect wife and Nick as an abusive husband. That diary alone is a genius move by her to tank Nick's image.
Minimum 300 entries on the Nick and Amy story. Start with the fairy tale early days. Those are true, and they're crucial. You want Nick and Amy to be likable. After that, you invent. The spending, the abuse, the fear, the threat of violence. And Nick thought he was the writer.
However, things take an unexpected turn for her when she is robbed whilst in hiding, forcing her to improvise on the spot. After an encounter with an ex-boyfriend, Desi, whom she kills to stage her return, Amy comes back home, claiming she was kidnapped this whole time. While Nick is spared by the media's scrutiny, he is also further trapped in the marriage, as he can no longer just leave her without coming across in a negative light. To make matters worse, Amy reveals that she is pregnant, securing control over him in the long run, as she knows he would not abandon his child. The film ends with Nick reluctantly staying with her, accepting the fact that he can never escape her manipulation and that no matter what, he is powerless in this situation.
Just don't piss her off.
This movie proves how domestic violence is not just about physical harm, but also about control, fear, and manipulation. And there are very few manipulators in cinema, quite like Amy Dunne. She doesn't just manipulate her husband, but the whole country, using their perception of a victim against them, and even mocking her clueless pawns as she does so.
You befriend a local idiot. Invite pregnant idiot into your home.
One of the best scenes that properly showcase the kind of person we're dealing with comes from the fake rape story 2/3 into the movie.
Amy comes over to my place with a bottle of bourbon and a bootleg of this band I love. And within 2 minutes, she's got my pants around my ankles, and she is kneeling down and... I'm sorry, I know it's your wife.
Had sex?
Yeah, consensual. It was rough, but she was screaming for it. Next morning, there's 2 cops at my door. Amy has wounds that are consistent with rape. Ligature marks on her wrists and my semen. It looks like I've tied Amy to my bed and raped her.
Her ability to seamlessly use people's perception against them is properly explained here. All she had to do was seduce the guy into having some rough sex, and before he knows it, he's a sex offender for life. And even then, they call it a light sentence since Amy dropped the charges. Her dropping the charges shows everyone how lucky he is and how forgiving she was, when in reality, it's the complete opposite. The fact that it was so easy for her to completely destroy a man's life shows the cracks in the society along with her own psyche. The even scarier fact is that situations like these can and do happen. There are so many fake rape charges in real life that this is probably the most realistic of her actions, to be honest, other than maybe baby trapping her partner to make sure he stays with her.
As if it's so hard to spread your legs. You know what's hard? faking a pregnancy.
Her desire for control leads to her organizing everything in a way that her victims have no option but to depend on her, as if they are puppets and she is the puppet master. Whether it be the charges in her ex-boyfriend's case or the financial support, along with the reception from the media in Nick's case, she holds all the strings and won't hesitate to rip them apart with it if they don't behave the way she wants them to. The fact that all it took was a small decision from her last puppet, the decision to give her some space for her to then plan a fake rape story against him, also shows how fragile her ego is. It also builds up the suspense by establishing the stakes, since we know Nick has done far worse to piss her off.
Nick Dunne took my pride and my dignity and my hope and my money. He took and took from me until I no longer existed. That's murder. Let the punishment fit the crime.
Abusers like this frequently seek constant validation, using their partner to fulfill their emotional needs. The kind of needs that were not fulfilled when she was young, and her parents decided to franchise her childhood without realizing or caring how it made her feel.
Regular, flawed, real Amy. Jealous, as always, of the golden child. Perfect, brilliant, amazing Amy. When I was 10, I quit cello. In the next book, Amazing Amy became a prodigy.
You play volleyball?
I got cut freshman year. She made varsity.
Why didn't you have a dog?
She got the dog. Puddles made her more relatable.
I love your parents, but they really can be assholes.
Because of her upbringing, she had a deep sense of jealousy and a perfectionist mindset. Things just had to be her way for her to be happy. So when Nick proposes to her at just the right picture-perfect moment, she loves it. He was being the perfect man and she portrayed the perfect cool girl that he liked. They even had a tradition as a couple, like the treasure hunts she expects Nick to follow year after year.
Treasure hunts?
What
was the clue last year she got so mad about?
Still don't know the answer, girl.
A few years ago, you'd have known.
A few years ago it was fun.
They are a normal couple from the outside, both to the media and their neighbors, and that's the facade Amy loves to keep, just so she can twist it any way she wants. So when Nick breaks this image by cheating on her and not upholding his side of the perfect couple deal, she has to take revenge. Unlike a realistic way to deal with all of this, which would be to divorce Nick after his cheating, Amy decides to take it further by making sure he suffers. As a result, Nick, who has finally understood why she is doing everything, decides to surrender. He accepts his actions on live TV, apologizes for them, and promises to work on his side of the relationship to her liking, which is exactly what she wanted to hear. It did not matter to her that this was all fake, that her marriage was fake, as long as it was perfect for her.
Yes, I loved you, and then all we did was resent each other and try to control each other and cause each other pain.
That's marriage.
One of the most challenging aspects of domestic violence is its often hidden nature. Victims are frequently isolated, manipulated, and made to feel powerless, making it difficult to seek help or leave the abusive situation. Abusers often exploit emotional bonds, fear, or dependency to maintain control, leaving victims trapped in cycles of fear and confusion. Society's tendency to overlook or misunderstand the severity of domestic violence can further silence those in need. This is the case for both men and women. For men, it is the fact that they would not be believed or worse, be laughed at by the people who are supposed to help them.
These are Michael's allegations. He says that she attacked with football moves and tackles and punched.
Alright, so 5 seconds in and we already have the audience laughing at a guy who said he's been abused.
For women, it is not having enough support if she does decide to move away, or worse, when the family decides to undermine all her suffering and encourages the victim to just adjust.
Hey, you cool if the guy who just attacked you hangs around for a while? You don't want to make him mad again.
Just one of those things, purely an accident.
A pivotal scene from each movie that best showcases the dangers of such domestic violence from each member comes by the end of the movie. In The Shining, we have Jack trying to break the door and attack Wendy. This situation is as scary as it gets for abused women. An angry husband with possibly a weapon who wants to harm his wife and child. The vulnerable partner hiding in the bathroom is especially terrifying, as it is the only room with any privacy, and now even that is about to get violated. The fact that situations like these happen every day to such an extent that it's barely even news anymore unless it involves either extreme brutality or someone famous shows how common it has become.
Well, you can rest assured, Mr. Ullman, that's not going to happen with me.
A few moments later.
Here's Johnny.
But what if the danger isn't strictly physical? In that case, we have the police investigation scene from Gone Girl. This for me was the most unnerving scene of the movie. In this scene, Amy is being questioned by detectives regarding her murder of Desi and how it came to be. This is when, in front of all these people, Amy uses the victim card, even adding new disturbing details to make everyone uncomfortable. She doesn't just come up with a believable lie, but she comes up with the perfect lie. A story that works so well that when a detective finally asks some basic questions regarding the case that may call out the legitimacy of her claims, everyone looks at her with a judgmental frown and even brush off her concerns just because they seem insensitive.
She slit his throat with a box cutter.
How'd she manage to get a hold of a box cutter? She had her tied up the whole time.
Can't you just be happy your wife is home and safe?
Amy's manipulation is almost invisible to the naked eye. Depending on the person she's interacting with, she can come across as a saint or a bitch. As the audience, we see which side she mostly belongs to. Of the two situations, I personally keep switching between which faith I think is worse for the victim. Is getting beaten to death, killed by a loved one you once trusted, better or worse than to kill yourself after everyone in your life has effectively abandoned and forsaken you? When you're shunned by everyone and believed by no one, all over a lie that spreads further than the news of your death or the culprit's confession ever would.
Did you ever see her again?
Yeah, on TV last week with you. I thought, there's Amy. She's graduated from being raped to being murdered.
Personally, I find Amy Dunne to be just as terrifying as Jack Torrance, if not more. You need physical strength to stop Jack, or even a 911 call. With Amy Dunne, you're the culprit before you've even said your side. Amy's strategy relies on the social expectations of such a situation. The fact that even a terrible liar like Amber Heard got as far as to ruin a multi-millionaire's career should show everyone how much worse things could have been if the liar was as clever and ruthless as Amy was. That too, to a normal, everyday man.
I've been unemployed for the last 8 years because I have to write sexual offender on every job application. I'm on a neighborhood watch list because I have to register as a predator. I haven't had a date in almost a decade because if a girl Googles me.
Instances where the victim is framed as the culprit and is then shunned by everyone over some lies can be very damaging. The isolation, the loneliness, and the constant reminder of the fake story that keeps ruining every chance at any social circles and promising careers, which can then drive the actual victim to suicide, as indicated by several real-life cases where a man did actually take his own life over false allegations. Even when the charges are dropped, or if the culprit herself comes to claim that she faked the whole situation, by then it's either too late or too far gone.
As long as I live, she'll never let me forget what happened. And it was 3 goddamn years ago.
At the end, whether it's Jack or Amy, both films teach us one undeniable truth. In a relationship, when gaining power over your spouse is the main goal, be it by being right all the time or by being a selfish narcissist, no one is safe, regardless of gender.
A loving relationship is supposed to supplement your individual identity, not damage it or replace it. When it comes to sacrificing one's self-respect, one's dignity, one's physical body, one's ambitions and identity, just to be with someone, then that same love becomes toxic and destructive.
Anyway, that's it for now. Let me know in the comments what you think about this topic. Please leave a like if you've enjoyed the video and subscribe for more video essays. With that said, I take my leave. Bye.
Did you do it? Did you do it?